been holding this off for the longest time. A lot of friends and past college classmates have been asking me questions and advice about travel therapy, so I decided to film it for you guys today. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so I actually made a list of questions that I've received in the past. First things first, does travel therapy always happen through an agency? The answer is yes, because if it's not through a travel agency, then it would strictly be signing a contract with the hospital or the facility itself, then it wouldn't really be travel therapy. The whole point of travel agencies are the benefits, which includes the stipends and reimbursements that they may or may not cover. So it's always good to ask about those questions when you do apply for the job. Next question. How to pick the right agency or recruiter for your job. So look at a lot of different websites and don't stick to just a couple that you hear about and solely focus on those. That's not going to do you any good. In my case, I took the responsibility upon myself to not only ask around fellow travelers, co-workers if they know anything about travel therapy. The nurses in hospitals tend to know a lot more about travel therapy than the therapists because they have a lot more traveling nurses. So I would ask those friends or co-workers about the agencies that they hear good things about, look them up myself. I can go on their website and see how organized everything is, how easy it is to reach out to their recruiters and find out the things that they offer on their website first. If I'm happy with what I see, I'll jot the website's name and then look for jobs on their sites later on when I have time. Sorry, I have my window open because I needed some fresh air. Okay, so some good bullet points to compare between the different companies are things such as their locations of their job, the salary, the number of job openings available on their website. If there's a site or the company that seems pretty new with very few amount of jobs across states, I would typically not focus too much energy and time on those because there's a lot of companies out there that have almost all their jobs listed, refreshing back to back. They're the kind of companies that sign more contracts with a whole lot of hospitals across the states versus some companies only focus on certain hospitals, so you'll have less likely of a chance of finding a job than the bigger companies. Also, a good thing to keep in mind is that the facilities you're going to work at, like a hospital, they are in making their job posts. They don't have to necessarily fulfill to whatever salary that you want because they have options themselves too. It's always good to negotiate, but also don't take too much advantage of it because especially in this time around, it's kind of harder to find travel jobs. So if you do see a good opportunity with at least average pay, go ahead and give it a shot. Don't expect something mind-blowing kind of salary because that's going to be very rare for you out there right now. So keep in mind that your exact salary isn't paid by the hospital. It's paid by whatever the travel agency is willing to pay you, depending on how much money they get from the hospital package or bundle of money. So you can negotiate your salary depending on how well your recruiter is willing to do that for you or how willing your recruiter is willing to do that for you. If they're a good recruiter, they will be your friend and do everything within their ability to give you the best price that they can give, aka the highest price that they can give while they still get profit. So another thing that I look for personally when it comes to finding the right company is how responsive the recruiter. In the beginning, you're talking to your recruiter almost on the daily basis. And my recruiter, she is amazing. She would reach out to me, ask me questions or tell me things I need to know way in advance before I came to even think of certain questions, like things about licensures or the kind of questions I might or might not be asked for interviews. She also mentioned things about when's a good time to ask schedules or type of clothing you are or aren't allowed to wear, housing stuff. She was really on top of it, even though she's a fairly new recruiter, but she did an amazing job. She was always answering my question very straightforward, never beat around the bush. The second I have a question about something that she knows about, she tells me in very in-depth details. And if there's any time that she feels like she might not be sure or not correct, she'll go to her manager, and if her manager doesn't know, they'll ask their higher up. And if it's a question that only the hospital knows, she'll go through all those people to ask the hospital for me. So I don't have to reach out to multiple people just to get my one question answered. She's doing all that communication for me, which is what a typical recruiter you would want to be doing for you. So look for signs of that. That's a huge blessing for travelers. If anyone's interested in knowing about like the agency I'm with, which is IA Healthcare, and my recruiter's info, I'll gladly share it with you guys. Just let me know below. When you do find the right travel agency, the one that you're happy with, and you see a job on there that you like, typically how it goes is you see a job posting, there's probably a link on there that you fill in your name, number, and email, and then someone will reach out to you. It could be the recruiter, or it could just be someone that works for the company that will get you in contact with your recruiter. With that, you would be speaking to a recruiter eventually. They'll tell you more details about the job, like the exact salary, length of weeks, as well as the exact location and name of the facility. And then from there, if you like everything that you hear so far, they can put in the application for you to see if that facility is willing to give you an interview based on your resume and whatever information you provided to them verbally. And then after the interview with the facility, if they're happy with that, then you go back to the recruiter in your travel company to start all the paperwork process to get your name under their company as a traveler. So there's no paperwork that has to be taken care of with the hospital or the clinic. It's all through your travel agency. So technically you're their employee, and they're like the middleman between you and your facility. Your travel company are the people that will be taking care of your benefits. For example, your medical benefits, your vision, health insurance, and once you've decided whether to have that or buy your own, that's all decided with them. So that's not a question that you would be typically asking the facility that you're working at, because they won't know anything about that. You're not working under their contract. Okay, next question. So these are some questions I've heard quite a bit about when I was sharing my travel stories on like my Instagram page and stuff. How to choose a good fitting job, and does the agency decide where you get to go? So first of all, no. The agency does not tell you where to go. You're the one that decides where you want to go. That's why it's on you to look at their job postings. You'll get to see the city and the state that this facility will be at, and maybe if you're lucky, they'll have a general map circling where that facility is located in the area, but most likely you won't know the exact address of the place. And once you're on the email or phone with your recruiter, they'll be able to tell you the facility name. So you can look it up yourself and see if that's a place that you'd be interested in working, and whatever specialty or department that they'll be putting you in. If you don't know which department or unit you'll be working in, or if the recruiter doesn't know, make a note to yourself. Ask that question to the interviewer for the facility when you're interviewing for them. So don't worry, I know quite a lot of people assume that the job is chosen by the agency and you're basically picking out of a bag, and whatever gets chosen for you, you have to go there no matter like the benefits, the location. It is nothing like that. You will know all the details you need and all the information you need before you get sent out. There will not be any like blindsidedness or surprises there, okay? So some things that I personally looked at when choosing if that location, not even the hospital that I work at now, but just like the location where the general people live at, how safe is that location? What are some things I can do there during those 13 weeks? Is it gonna be public transportation, or am I gonna need my car when I go there? Is it walking distance? And if you want, you can look at general housing prices in that area. For me, I got lucky and looked at Airbnbs, but not everywhere will have an Airbnb within a good distance. Another thing to keep in mind is especially if you're going to a big city that you can probably guess that the cost of living is gonna be pretty high end, like for example New York, California. New Jersey so far is kinda, I guess, a little bit on the higher side of cost of living compared to Florida for sure. And obviously like bigger, more crowded states. Keep that in mind because you're gonna want to know how much you generally gonna need to spend in your rent, your groceries, gas, and things like that if the salary they're giving you is worth that kind of cost of living. Being smart about finance and budgeting is going to be very critical because you're going to be out there on your own. There's not going to be family or friends there that can pick you up when you fall down or if you needed some kind of help out of nowhere. You're on your own. That sounds very like morbid to say, but I'm just throwing like the worst case situation at you. It's not going to be like that. I haven't had any of those moments since I've been here, so don't worry too much. Okay. Make sure you're able to be saving at least something every paycheck and not having to use that entire paycheck for your rent and your weekly groceries and gas. Some companies pay week to week, some pay bi-weekly. There are some companies that can cancel their travelers out mid-contract because the facility ended up canceling their contract or whatever with the company. I have heard of those stories, not from anyone I know, but I've heard about it through my recruiter. So that is a possibility, but very rare. Usually it's a week-to-week pay from what I've heard. A very, very popular question I also have been getting is, what did you deem as a reasonable pay for a traveler as an OT? That's a tough question because when you take into consideration everything that is going on in the healthcare world and the economy in general in US, it fluctuates a lot from city to city even, and from job to job. You could be working in the same hospital next to someone that does a very similar kind of job as you, but the pay difference can be scary. And I'm not going to go into details. Honestly, there's no really point of sharing it because it really just depends on what job you get, and sometimes just based on your luck of what's out there when you're looking for the job, you know? I don't have like a range that I deem as a good pay, but what I did, because this is my first travel job, I just looked at what the average pay range I see for occupational therapists on all the websites that I see, just like the general number. It could be like $1,700 to $2,800, which is a big difference, but you got to take into consideration, why is that place $2,800? Is it because it's literally in the middle of nowhere, like, I don't know, Kentucky or Kansas or somewhere that not a lot of people want to go? Typically that's why they have a little more pay, because not a lot of people are willing to move there or go there for 13 weeks when there's not much to do. If those don't matter to you, then take that chance. Go apply for that job and try it out for 13 weeks, you know? Just depending on the kind of demands that are out there for OTs right now, I don't really see a huge rise in our salary at all. I've been hearing that there has been a decrease in salary, not just for therapists, but even for nurses, travelers. I think because hospitals are getting huge budget cuts, at least in the New Jersey hospitals I've been hearing about. So with that being said, I just have to say that if you're looking for travel therapy as your form of boost in income, or you're expecting that there's going to be a huge difference in the amount of income for traveling versus a permanent job, at least for OTs, I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but I don't think that's going to be the case. That you could find them, but that doesn't mean that there will be many job openings out there that will suit all those needs, especially in the money term. So the next question I get is it a process that takes months, or are you expected to be there within like a week of getting the job? Normally when you see open jobs on those websites, they typically say ASAP under like start date, and then there will be other jobs that have an expected start date, but that's not usually set in stone. When you go through the application with the company and the interview with the hospital will typically let you know when they need that person to start. But if you're in the process of obtaining your licensure or getting your paperwork done, they're willing to like wait a couple weeks out even for you to fully obtain and complete all those process stuff before you start. So don't let the travel date or the ASAP scare you off from applying. Still give it a shot, and usually it's probably gonna be more flexible than it sounds like. Another question that they will generally ask is if you have that state's licensure in your hand. What I typically do is I will let them know that I'm already in the process of applying for it, because licensures can take weeks to maybe even a month or two. So I just let them know that I'm in the process of it. That way at least I have a little bit of like benefit from my end, that they will still put my application or put my name on their paper to send to the hospital, versus if you tell them straight up like, oh, I haven't started anything for the license, that'll just like put you in the back burner and give you a slightly lower chance of getting your name to the hospital. I am back. I took a long break earlier because the battery died, and now I don't have the same kind of fresh mind and energy I had earlier, but I'm still gonna finish filming this for y'all. Alright, continue on. For my company, it was a pretty short application process. She sent me everything within one email, and once I got that email, I got right on top of the paperwork process. And if you're applying for travel jobs, get organized ahead of time. They're gonna need your COVID vaccines for sure. They're gonna need your immunizations, passport or driver's license info, your social security, and just have those all on hand. Cam Scanner is the app I use to scan all these documents and then just like send it off in the email. It's very fast and you don't have to worry about ever losing it because it's on your phone. It's not like a paper stuck somewhere. If there's any drug test or lab work, they'll let you know about that. They'll provide you the location. Those could be very time consuming because they usually don't have appointment times, so it's by walk-in, and the wait could be up to more than an hour or two. And if you're unlucky like me, you could go multiple times and not even get it done that day, which really sucked, but you just gotta suck it up and get what you need to get done. What does your schedule look like and how long are you at each location for? So travel contracts typically are 13 weeks. That's like the norm for every travel contract, no matter which discipline you're in. As for like the week-to-week schedule, that is totally up to the facility themselves. Typically, their normal full-time job schedule. For therapists, we don't have like overnight shifts or rarely ever 12-hour shifts like nurses do. So we usually have the normal 8 to 10 hours a day shift, 4 to 5 days a week. So whatever the facility needs, based on what their current needs are, they will let you know what they plan on for you. So a little bit about the typical day-to-day life in travel therapy. It's not going to be that different from if you have worked that kind of setting before. Like if you worked in acute care before, it's gonna be like how it is at any other acute care. There is not a lot of difference being a traveler versus being a full-time job person. So my current experience at this hospital right now, I would say is a very rare one because they are significantly understaffed. And so telling me that their productivity was only 22 to 24 units for an 8-hour day, but ever since I worked there, I think the average units that I would reach each day, 26 to 32 units. And there are days where I would even go over that to up to 35 to 36 units, which is crazy. That's definitely putting yourself like in a stressful workday load. I believe the most evals I've done in a day was 10 to 11 acute care evals, and if you work in acute care, you know how much time those take. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. You really don't know these things until you start working there, unfortunately. An advice I do want to say is that if you're overproductive for them, don't do it, because it's not like they're paying you overtime or raising your salary. Unfortunately for me, they cut my salary back on this contract extension because the hospital had a budget cut. That's a whole nother story, but I ended up accepting it even though I did try to fight for it. After comparing a lot of things, pro-conning the good and the bad of accepting this extension, I just went with it. Let me tell you something, friend. If you find yourself going way over productivity day by day by day, tell yourself to not do that that and be aware when that does happen so that you can allow yourself to take a step back and take your days a little easier. Even if the hospital or your manager gives you a list that are expected to be seen that day, and the list can get crazy sometimes, don't feel bad about not seeing everyone. It is not only your responsibility to see everyone, it is the facility or the hospital's fault. They don't have enough therapists to be seeing every patient. Don't feel guilty and bad yourself, because if you do that, you're just gonna put yourself through a much more emotional burden at work that you don't need and you don't deserve either. I've just known that after working the first 10 weeks there, I went through that experience. I was always overproductive. I did so much that I didn't realize how much longer my list was growing each week. Once they see that you can do so much, they're not afraid of like just adding on more people day by day, and you don't realize yourself until you compare like your 10th week of work to the first week. It's a major difference how much more they expected from you. Just know in advance, don't overwork yourself. You don't have to do that. The one thing I can say is that you might be surprised, but there are hospitals or clinics out there that could operate completely differently from what you may expect. Because my first job in acute care is a huge hospital in downtown Orlando, so everything's like pretty fast paced. The system that they're using is pretty new. Everything is technology based. But this hospital that I'm working at currently, they're a much more smaller facility. They're in the downtown of Jersey City, but I don't know, maybe just because like their management hasn't taken a step up. They are very old schooled, and it can get on people's nerves sometimes. They still use whiteboards to assign patient names every single morning. You have to write on the board after seeing each patient and like fill in patient infos on little tags on the whiteboard. You have to fill in a raggedy elementary school pink binder, and then you also got to document all these in the computer. It's just unnecessary extra work that no one understands why it's even being done. It's just still there because it's always been there. Here are some questions that would be really good to ask your travel company or your recruiter. Basic things that you would want to know before you say yes to even an interview. Number one, what is the net pay? Net pay is your take-home pay after tax deduction. So this is the pay that you will see in your bank account. If they tell you hourly pay, that's the taxable amount. So if they say $40 an hour, that's not deducting the tax that will be taken away. So know the difference between that. Which setting is this position for? Because some listed job positions will tell you exactly which setting it's in, like acute care for cardio, thoracic, or whatever department. Some of them would just say hospital or clinic without being specific. So know exactly what setting so you're prepared before you apply. How much is the exact stipend amount for housing and meals and travel? Stipends are the biggest benefit in travel therapy, so sometimes it could add up more than your weekly pay. Stipends usually include like housing, meals, and then travel reimbursement, which is usually a one-time thing that they do in the beginning of your contract. That could include things like airfare, gas to travel to from your location. It's called the 50-mile rule. I think the minimum is to be 50 miles from your permanent address in order to be considered a traveler. And so for me, because I had to fly out to Jersey, I would send them my ticket in regards to how much the airfare was, luggage prices, even Uber or taxi rides, public transport that you use to take from the airports. Those may count too. It all varies depending on your company, so make sure to ask those questions for your recruiter. One final question that I personally like to ask, especially if it's a setting that I'm not 100% confident or comfortable in, is if they offer some sort of mentorship or training in the beginning. It could be a day or two. Some facilities even give you a week of training time. So I will list all the travel companies that I've had a good experience with, that I've been able to talk to, I feel like would be good choices to look at down below, so that you guys can click on the links, check out their job postings, reach out to a recruiter. Even if you don't see a job that you want to apply for currently, you can still reach out to their recruiter, so that when there is a job opening in that state or that city or the setting that you're looking for, they will personally reach out to you. You don't have to go on those sites every single day. You'll have someone watching out for you, notifying you or calling you when it becomes available. We're almost done, guys. Almost done. Obtaining the out-of-state licensure. This is probably one of the most common questions I get because it can be very daunting for some people. I've heard like stories about how long it takes, how much paperwork it takes, and sometimes they may not get it in time to start the job. It's all true, but you gotta start somewhere. If you know exactly which state or states you want to potentially even travel to, go ahead and apply it. These companies will reimburse you for all those licensure fees either way, but the only thing is you have to sign with that company and work in that state in order to get them to reimburse you for travel. Every state's fees vary significantly because New Jersey's, the total amount of money that went into it, from the application online to fingerprinting to mailing, could go up to $400, $500, $600, and that's on the average side. Keep in mind, things are going a little slower because of COVID, but it's not as slow as it was last year. For New Jersey licensure, after getting my second set of fingerprints in, because my first set apparently wasn't classifiable, so after getting the second set in, it only took about a little over a week and a half for me to get it, which was pretty good. But New York's, for example, took way longer, almost a month and a half from the day I sent in the fingerprints. So just have an idea of which states you want to go and just get started on that online application. That's your first step. Go on the states. Usually it's Department of Education website, and then you'll see like professional license. You'll find travel therapy and then go to occupational therapy. From there, you can fill out the online application. Get updates about the application process, but there can be states like New York where they don't give you updates and you're not allowed to see live updates on their site. They don't have that option available. I literally emailed or called them week by week to get updates on them. They didn't even like try to notify me if it was still missing documents. I had to call them and find that out myself. Be very mindful and take it upon yourself to get these information. Third thing I wanted to talk about is staying organized, which I mentioned earlier, having all your vaccine, immunization shots, and all your identification things all in one place so that you can just select all of it and zoom it to your email right away without having to scrap up and find things around your house and take pictures of it. So that definitely helped me out a lot in paperwork process. And last thing that I want to mention about obtaining the out-of-state licensure, if there's a live scan option, use that live scan option for fingerprints. It is the least error-proof, and it's the fastest. The paper ones are available if you don't have the option to get live scan because you don't live in that current state, which was my case because when I was applying for the New Jersey license, I lived in Florida. I couldn't get the live scan, so the paper one, the first set, was not classifiable because I guess my fingerprints weren't dark enough to get it read. So I had to get it redone. So that did take almost 2 weeks of the time from when I could have obtained my license and been so much more ready and prepared for this contract compared to, I believe it was 2 days before my flight out to here was when I found out, oh, congratulations, you got your license. The whole week up to that day, I was just afraid I wasn't gonna get it in time before I started. So live scan fingerprints if you can. If not, try the paperwork, but make sure that they're a trustworthy place. All right, guys. Last set of questions, okay? So these are the things I would recommend you to do before you start your job, basically. After you've already completed an interview with the facility and know for sure that they've accepted you, go ahead and start looking for basically your housing. Don't wait until your license is approved or anything else before you start looking, because it doesn't hurt to look in advance. So once the licensure comes, you can be expected to start immediately. That's just a waiting game, and that's not something that you have control over. Everything else is within your own responsibility, including the housing, the travel to the location, and setting up everything else like the packing of your stuff, getting everything moved in, and blah blah blah. That's all on your planning and on your own time. So get those things organized and planned out well while you're waiting. Basically, use your time wisely. So some places that I would say you can consider for housing are like our long stay Airbnbs, which is what I'm doing. There's furnished houses or rented out bedrooms in cities if you feel safe enough to like stay in those places. But if you don't cook a lot or you don't cook at all, there are extended stay hotels that are close by work that aren't so expensive because they don't have like the countertop or kitchen setup. Those are usually cheaper. In my case, as y'all may know, I cook every single day. So I had to find somewhere that has a full kitchen, has a fridge, and laundry and washer, or washer and dryer are some of my biggest like needed amenities. And I found a place that has all of it and for a decent price. So I think that covers it all. If there is any other questions that you have I didn't get to answer, please feel free to let me know below, or feel free to DM me on Instagram, which is also listed below. Maybe I'll get to film another one of these in the future once I have more experience through travel and just know a lot more like backstories that are going to be helpful to share. I'll definitely do that with you guys too. But I really hope you all found this helpful, and I'm sorry if it turns out to be very long and lengthy. I can go into an absurd amount of detail sometimes when I talk about these things and like certain stories, so don't mind me. You can fast forward if you need. I hope everyone out there who is considering travel therapy the best of luck. I will be glad to answer any other questions you have, and don't be afraid to give it a shot. It really doesn't hurt. Like 13 weeks will fly by faster than you think, because my first 10 weeks flew by so fast. Like everyone at work did not realize how fast I was leaving. Even if the job isn't the most fun, or you don't have like the best manager or supervisor or even coworker, sometimes you can just be doing your own thing, and after work you still go out and explore the city or your neighborhood, which is basically what I do. If you're single and you have nothing holding you back, just go for it and have a good support system, because this is like a heart-to-heart advice. Having a good support system is very, very important in these kind of things. I feel like people tend to feel lonely and homesick when you're out in a far place where you don't know anyone, you don't have any friends or family that you could see in person day to day. Like FaceTiming, yes, it's a great technology nowadays, but it's really not the same compared to going home and feeling the physical, like in-person energy and vibe from your loved ones. When you have a good emotional support system from anyone, it makes a huge difference. So I really hope that if you do travel therapy, you have that in your life, because you're gonna really appreciate those people. And feel free to reach out to me. I would gladly talk to you guys and share with you guys anything, and just give you any emotional advice, support, or just whatever it is you may need. Okay, I want to wish you guys all the best of luck. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.